Hello everyone, I hope everybody's staying happy, healthy and safe. Today I want to answer one specific question about specters and the difference between redemption sentries versus slave drivers. Which one is better? And as you probably know, the answer to this question is very hard depending on the type of content you're doing. So I want to go over deeper in the differences between these two and see in which scenarios you should choose which one. And it took me a while. I've been playing on this character for quite a while. So I have 6 days and 12 hours playtime in this. A lot of it will be in like the hideout and this SSF, but because of that, I had to farm a lot of different things and try out a lot of different things to understand redemption sentries better. And I played slave drivers before many times. So I feel like I'm great now. I have a good understanding of both of them, and I can answer this specific question. I actually looked for a video like this when I wanted to start redemption sentries, and I couldn't find any that goes over specifically what I was looking for. So I'm hoping this will help other people when they're trying to decide which one to go with. So as a quick overview, redemption sentries are these specific specters that you can see here. They're from the Redeemer, which you can find in the Redeemer influence maps, and they have a couple of different attacks. One is the normal attack, which is a projectile. They fire a projectile which is based physical, which gets converted to code. You can find all these different informations about their attacks in PoEDB. They have like a very specific thing. They have two other attacks which they use very rarely because of the AI changes that Gigi did, but they still use it every 1 to 2 seconds. They have one that they sit down and they fire a projectile which hits the ground and makes like a flower of cold damage. And they have another one which they fire a shot into the sky and comes back down, and again they have like an AoE type of a spell. I believe they're both spells. The first one is attacks, which we are the main damage dealers, their default attack which we are focusing on, and the other two are spells. This is for the redemption sentries. For slave drivers, they have two different attacks as well. This one had 3, the other one, slave driver, have 2. One is the one that they bring down their VIP. It's a complete lightning damage, and there's no conversion from fizz to lightning. It's base lightning damage, and that's a spell. The other one is their default attack, which they swing their mace or something around. That's the one that you don't want the slave drivers to do because it's a waste of damage. The redemption sentries, the spells are still a waste of damage, but they still do some damage. They're not as useless as the default attack of the slave drivers. So now that we have a good understanding, you can actually, I have another video about slave drivers in what was the, just search the YouTube channel for slave driver. I played it with a couple of different ascendancy, so I don't remember which one I actually uploaded and when it was, but I have 1 or 2 slave driver videos. You can take a look at the gameplays. I have a couple of redemption sentries that I uploaded in this video the past couple of weeks. You can take a look at those to get an understanding of like how they play, but I don't wanna like showcase to you because you probably can just find on YouTube a lot of showcases and see how they actually work out. I want to go in more details into different scenarios. So first and foremost, league start. You want to start a race specter summoner with like different ascendancies. What would you do? League start, I always go with a slave driver. That's a no-brainer. You can get them at Act 5. I don't remember actually the name of the zone. Let's see, which one was it? The control blocks, I believe. You can get down control blocks, and from there you'll have the slave drivers up until a good point. Even when you hit maps, I wouldn't change them until you get to one of the other scenarios that we talk about. But slave drivers, you should start with slave drivers when you can. They have very good damage for the content that you're doing at that point. So League Start definitely slave driver, uh, and even if you want to transition eventually into redemption sentries, you should stay on slave drivers for quite some time, like white maps, slave drivers still, because as I'm gonna keep going, you will understand that the so redemption sentries are better with more investment. And in Lego Start, because of the amount of money that you'll have, or in my case, because you still have a lot of farming to do for different things, you would wanna keep the slave drivers for quite some time until you get to a certain level of power with your gear, then switch to slave drivers. For new players, all the way through, I would still suggest slave drivers. Redemption sentries are a little bit harder to manage and follow. They have so many nuances and niche scenarios that you can specifically change gear toward, which makes it a little bit harder for new players to understand those niches. So, generally, necromancers and summoners are very good for new players because you get to learn the game very easily because your summons are doing the damage that you need to. So you can still look around, see what are the attacks that you're getting, maybe try to dodge them, try to understand the game better, and they will push you forward. So from that perspective, summoners are really good, and within those summoners, slave drivers is a very good option, but not redemption sentry, because for redemption sentries to really work, you need to understand a whole bunch of different things. And to that end, I believe that for newer players, maybe redemption sentries are not the right answer. For delving, it's a little bit harder to start with until like maybe 120, 150. I believe that it starts to be level 83 at around 160, 170. So up until like level 75 or 79 of the delve, the monster levels. Slave drivers are really good. They're fast. They're coming with you. Their AI is aggressive. They do everything really nice. And to be honest with you, redemption sentries at that low of level doesn't really matter. They're both really good, but like slave drivers are just easy, and you already have them. You may as well use them. As you get into higher level delves from maybe 180, 200 above, slave drivers become better because they have the cold damage. They can freeze things at that level up to a certain extent, depending on how much damage they're actually doing and how much investment you did on them. Because of the freeze, they're very safe and reliable. And specifically, you can, like, if this is the delve node that I'm doing, I usually stand
Hello.
at the furthest that I don't get affected by darkness, and just put down my Stormbrand or whatever you're using to do the do your curses. And because this counts as an attack that you're doing, your specters are gonna start attacking the target, which means that they're gonna start spamming their attacks. And because of the projectiles and how I build them with pierce and everything, it's very easy to do the nodes in as you go higher. But with slave drivers, because of the very limited AOE, how they will do is a little bit different. They cannot stand right next to you, they cannot block anything, and they cannot freeze. They can shock, but no freezing. Freezing is a really good defensive layer in this game, and because in that level they can still freeze things because of how much damage they do in comparison to the life of the monster, they're really good. But again, after a certain delve level, probably around 400, or if you want to 350, something like that, the freezing becomes unreliable. At that point, the monster health is so high at some point. I'm not saying it's depending on how you build the specters, the amount of damage changes and the reliability changes. But at some points, no matter how much you put in, at that point the freezing becomes unreliable. And then again, you would prefer, especially from moving from a node to another node, you would prefer your uh, damage dealers to be right next to you to block things as well. And if you, I'm not sure if summoners are the best ascendancy and approach for deep delving, but if you do want to do that, again, I would prefer slave drivers from their mechanics to do very deep delving. Because at that point, they're not redemption sentries are not freezing, and again, slave drivers are not going to be shocking, but we didn't count on that. We counted on them being right next to you and have an AoE that hits right next to you multiple times and block things. But if I'm moving around, a redemption sentry attacks, they're standing behind me and they are attacking things. So sometimes they don't catch up, and I have to keep convocating to get them next to me just so I don't get hit. They're doing their damage, but they're not next to me. They're not next to me to block attacks from the enemies. So from delving, uh, from the sweet spot, I feel like redemption sentries for general would be better because not everybody wants to push as far. But if you do, you will go back to slave drivers. For bossing, again, redemption sentries for bossing. If you have another mapping character and you just wanna maybe log out, log back in with another character, do the boss very quickly, very easily. It's very reliable and damage, and the ceiling for the damage is really high. And because of how specters, summoners, and specters specifically work, you can just dodge things. So if I'm doing like a shaper, I can just run around, do whatever I need to, right? And as long as I have my death mark on the target and maybe curses on the target, they're still doing damage. So I have to reapply two very simple things every so often, right? So from bossing perspective, specters are generally good, but redemption sentries are better than slave drivers because the ceiling for the damage they do is very high. Given the amount of investment it takes to get to that level is really high, but you have the option of pushing it to very extremes. And we'll talk about it a little bit later on as I go over the investment portfolio. I just want to touch on some other things and then go over the specifications of why, the reasons behind all the things that I was saying and I'm gonna be saying basically. So from hardcore perspective, I believe that they're both really good. Hardcore is really hard because they both offer so much. Redemption sentries are freeze things, so that's an amazing layer. Like a lot of times when I'm doing even T16, I can freeze a T16 boss. Not every boss, but I can freeze most of the T16 bosses. And if I'm not freezing, I'm definitely chilling them very efficiently. So they're not attacking as fast and they're not moving as fast to reach me, which is really nice from a redemption sentry perspective. But as I was mentioning in the last point, redemption sentries are very investment heavy, which means that that investment needs to go toward them dealing damage, them being tanky, them being able to free things, all those things, and them just all the amount of investment that you have to do from passive skill points to gems and everything means that you can have less defensive layers for yourself. I used to play this character, this is SSF, not hardcore SSF, but I was playing it as a hardcore character, and I'll go over some options that you have. But because I was playing softcore, I was like, okay, let's move on to softcore and see how that frees up some of the damage. And now I understand the amount of damage they do if you are investing points in them, which means that from a hardcore standpoint, because they freeze, they're very reliable for mapping. And if you are familiar with all the boss mechanics, you can probably dodge most of it because of the playstyle, so they're very reliable. But at the same time, if you make a mistake in a boss, you do not have as much defensive layers. From the other perspective, when you're doing slave drivers, you're not mapping as easily, but you will have a lot more points to invest in yourself to get more defensive layers and be tankier in general. I have 6.1k life right now. Before I moved on to a more offensive approach, I had over 7.2k life and more armor, and I had like an option of another curse, which would have been a little bit different. Basically, you can add like a defensive curse to the enemy to basically take less damage, which is really nice in mapping and bossing and everything. From an SSF perspective, which is the last point that I want to make before I just try to generalize everything, is that SSF by default, which I'm playing right now, has that RNG to it. So sometimes you will, no matter how much you play, you saw I've been playing this character a lot, but no matter how much you play, you will not get the specific items that you need. And because those items are, like, I haven't had a Jinx Juju drop for me at all. And that's something that I will definitely put into good use no matter what type of specters I will be using, right? And that means that even if you want to do the investment, which makes redemption sentries better, the more investment you do, you will not have the option of just going out and buying. Like, I have just about enough money to buy something for myself, like an upgrade. Like, I haven't been picking up anything, but like, just from cash expand point, these are like raw drops that I had 6XLs. So I can buy something for myself. I found everything, I crafted everything for myself. But what I'm trying to say is that definitely a Jinx Jutsu wouldn't be 6XL, but in SSF I'm willing to pay 2XL, 3XL just for that, and I don't have the option to. So that's generally SSF, but what I mean is when you go the route of redemption sentries, you have a lot more specific things that you need to try out and you need to invest in to make the better character and make it more reliable. Yes, the ceiling is a lot higher than slave drivers, but I don't think that if you want to play SSF in SSF a character for like a couple of days, you should go redemption sentries. It's if you do not have all the gears, or like at least most of the gears that you're going to be using for your playthrough. So that's another discussion that I wanted to make sure that if somebody's gonna try to play SSF, they need to know about this. So to wrap everything up, basically redemption sentries are a lot better if you have the capability and the money to invest in, and you're willing to invest the time to uh, gear them toward the specific things that you want. So the ceiling for redemption sentries are a lot higher, and you can get a lot more out of them versus the slave drivers. But slave drivers are just plug them in and just use them no matter what you do. They're gonna do great, or they're gonna do very good, but maybe not great for that specific thing that you're doing. In comparison, redemption sentries, if you build them for a specific thing, they're gonna do amazing for that specific thing, and then maybe for some other things they're gonna not be as good. They're still good, but maybe not as good, right? So that's something to. This is like the general discussion that I wanted to make for everybody to maybe if you wanna play a Spectre character, you should now have a better understanding of how things work and a general understanding. Now, for more specific thing, I want to go over a couple of different things. Uh, Necromantis Aegis are the type of build that you would play with like Victorious Charity, or like a Shaper Elder shield with like +2 to minimum frenzy charges and +2 to minimum power charges. If you are playing in uh, normal league, like SSF normal, or not, sorry, not SSF league, basically you would be trade league. That's what it would. If you're playing in trade league, definitely, and if you're willing to invest something like that, going the route of redemption sentries with crit is very reliable, because from both offensive side you're going to do amazing amounts of damage. From defensive side, you're going to be reliable, freezing even higher tier mobs. Even with this level of investment that I have, I'm still at the low level. I'm still able to freeze most of the T16 bosses reliably. Like, I freeze them, they move for half a second or a second, then I freeze them again, which is really nice for me. And I'm doing GMP, which is lowering my damage. Like, if I put slow projectile, definitely I'll be freezing them very reliably, which I do for bosses, but not for like general just map bosses. From redemption sentries, again, you can do Elder, Shaper, Awakening, or Bone Helmets, which will be life for you, but it will have hypothermia, minion damage, maybe even minion life, +3 to socketed minion gems, and you can get the socketed gems deal 30% more elemental damage, that type of that's an expensive thing to buy even in trade league. I'm not sure about the prices right now, but it used to be like 30 to 40 exalts. You can check it out to see like +3 to minion gems, hypothermia, minion damage, and 30% more elemental damage. That's technically uh, 8 linked race specters, which is going to be really amazing. So that's something to look out for. But because I'm playing SSF, I farmed a card that gives a Lionel's item, and I'm playing on a 6.5 link Lionel's Vision with my specters because of the peers, because I'm playing GMP, so my redemption sentries are firing 5 projectiles, but at the same time I want those projectiles to go through enemies, either chain or pierce. I could have got the pierce here. Chain is definitely better in my opinion, but if I was playing in a trade league and I had that type of helm, I would have definitely socketed in a chain with GMP or LMP, depending on how much damage you're willing to lose, and then raise the specters, and you already have minion damage, probably Deathmark for single target. That would have been my 4 link, and then I would have gotten the +3 plus the minion gem and hypothermia and everything else on top of it. So 18. Yeah, that's, and then if I was using that helmet, I would have been crafting something like this, +1 to the number of maximum number of specters, which would have been 25% more damage than right now. I have 4 specters. I could have had 5, and that's 25% more damage for me up back. And you could actually, even in SSF, I found it very easily. Like, took me 3 days to farm. Really, it drops after very low level, I believe 50 or something, but I got like 130. I was just going around and farming it. You can easily find it. And in this specific league, because of how crafting works, you can easily just remove a physical mod, remove a lighting mod, or just replace lighting mod. Just do keep doing until you get like a very good life, a couple of good resistances, and that would have been it if I was playing in a trade league and I had that option of the helm. With the helm, this one is going to be amazing because you still have all the clear. You don't need the pierce from the body armor, and that would have been really good. Other than that, this is still pretty good if you want to do bossing, but I don't want to change my body armor every time that I want to do a boss. Or also I would have 6 link this and just change it every time, but that's too much of a hassle for me to do for every boss basically. Other things, if you are playing hardcore, you'll definitely want something like this. Is not a good shield, but something like this with a high life and a cover % of life when you block. We are investing into block, so I have 66, 72, 75 with my Tempest shield, which means that we block very reliably. So that means that and part of that being that we are doing glancing blows. So we take half the damage of every hit, but at the same time we recover a good chunk of our life every time. And if you're playing hardcore, you want to do this, and you want to give up on Necromantis Aegis and invest heavily on life. I actually dropped all the life that I had here, and I went to these ones because now that I don't have the shield, I cannot cap my block chance without a couple of basically nodes on the tree. So you can drop these and drop this. Now you have your shield back. You will get that shield that I just showed you, which is going to be really nice. And then you'll go over here, grab some life. You can actually go back in, grab all these nodes, and grab another Whispers of Doom for an additional curse, which will be really nice. You can put the defensive curse on. Why do I have this one node here? I forgot to take that out. Sorry. Yeah, that's let's put this back in. Yeah, that makes the most sense. But yeah, basically these are the 2 things that I wanted to show you from the one perspective. You want to have a +1 to level of all minion gems and +1 to level of all all spell skill gems. It's I still haven't been able to find any four socket resonators. I already have the things that I need to get it. Like it's the probability is apparently 1 in 3 to 4 tries with a four socket resonator and a convoking bond to get one with shuddering, metallic, corded, and jagged. That blocks most of the prefixes, and you'll have three prefixes that way, and two of them are the ones that you want. So, yeah, 1 in 3 to 4, maybe 5 chance. Not exactly 1 in 3, but like because I haven't been able to find even one four socket resonator, I haven't even had the chance to try it out. But yep, basically those are the ones that I wanted to mention from redemption sentries. You can take a look. Most of these, if you're playing a non necromancer ascendancy, you'll definitely need as one of your links and empower to get it to get your raise specter to level 25. So you get two raise specters, or yeah, three raise specters from your raise specter gem. So then you'll have like a different type of gem setup, but everything else should be quite similar from your perspective. I did go the life route. It's easier because I wanna scale a bunch of armor and energy shield. I would have given up on armor, but now I can get to come here and grab call to arms to have a very fast or instant enduring cry, all those things. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that because I was playing redemption sentries, I had to do a lot of investment and thinking into what I'm trying to do for that specific purpose that I'm doing. But with like slave drivers, you probably can make do with a lot less, because you will not have to think about, oh, how am I gonna make these projectiles pierce or like chain or something. Just as easily there's an AoE a spell, so you have like a lot more scaling. One of the things that you will face if you're playing redemption sentries is that the speed at which they attack, the attack speed for the redemption sentries are really low. A lot of times it takes not a couple of seconds, but it takes up to a second for them to just maybe turn around the level and attack another enemy, which is very annoying. That's why I wanted to give them something and when they're out of like frenzy charges, because that gives them attack speed as well, which is really nice. Or you will have to do something like that basically. That's everything that I wanted to touch on. If you guys have any more questions about them, redemption sentries, slave drivers, these are not the only two specters. There are like two more specters that are really amazing, and I did wanted to give them a try, but these are the best two generalized ones. There's like two more that are very specific for bossing, specifically, which I may keep this character and give it a try, or I may give it a try in another league. Who knows? But this specific thing, I wanted to let you guys know what I think about these two specifically. Hope this really helps, because I do feel like I did the best I could to transfer everything that I experienced with both of these characters, this one and a couple of ones that I played as a slave driver before with different syntheses. So I hope this really helps you. Thank you guys for listening. I hope I didn't talk too much, and have a great rest of your day.